Well, I told you I'd show you when I was done, and I'm far from it. So let me show you why I didn't want to do this live. I put the front bracket and the back bracket on. I even had that compressor I showed you a minute ago as a witness of where everything was, and I'll be doggone if I didn't get that back one on backwards. And I fumbled with that front one probably 4 times before I realized this, and drag it over and take a look at it. Sure enough, I had the back one was on backwards. So I pushed everything back around, put everything back the way it's supposed to. The front bolts are now tight. Obviously there's not a belt on it, it's not ready. The reason I didn't want to do this live is this right here. I told you I thought those valve covers were going to get in the way. That bracket is that far away. I don't know if I can get in here with it. You can see where the slide is and you can see where the bolt hole is, and that bracket is tight. And the reason it's not working is right there. That bracket's hitting that valve cover as I anticipated. Now, the smart person, which apparently I am not going to be, would say, just go get a different set of valve covers, put on there, and that will go away. And you can put everything back together, you don't have to modify nothing. That's probably not what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to modify that bracket. And I've even got a washer underneath that, where those bolts are, trying to raise it up. And it still just isn't even close. Well, I took the bracket off, I raised it to where, well, I actually put it to where that bolt would actually bolt in, and there would have to be a spacer of about almost an inch, and then it would almost have to be cut at an angle, but then your bolt's going to be straight up and down, and that's just asking for failure. So because I have at least 3 of these brackets laying around, and I'm talking about this bracket here. You see the one with the bolt hole in it where it's supposed to be here. Okay, I assumed you knew what I was talking about, but there you go. What I may do is get my grinder. Let me get a light. I'm sorry. Let me throw this all over the floor. What I may do is get this. Okay, what I may do, where's the bracket? There it is you can see the way this thing is stamped. It's got a pretty good, let me set this light down where I guarantee this will not work the way I want it. Okay, you see it's got a pretty good lip here because obviously that's where that nut, the captured nut is. It's welded, excuse me. And then you've got a little bit of a lip here. And this is a pretty substantial piece of steel with, you know, actual gauge or thickness, whatever you want to call it. What I might do is try this first, is just cut this here, take like a V-notch out, or actually just cut it here and here. And I've got a torch at home. I didn't want to bring it here, but I may have to. But anyway, heat that up and then bend that over to where the bolt will bolt in, and then I can weld that back up on both sides. Now there'll be a gap. I could actually take a strap off of something else because I've got pieces of steel laying around here everywhere in several of these brackets. I may actually be able to take that and just do a little bit of support to it. It's really holding the back up, and the reason that is because when you put headers on these, the original, let me get the light again, the original setup on these AC systems that had stock manifolds on them, as you can see, this bracket, this is the same bracket that's on the back of the compressor. There's a hole right here, and on the original manifolds there was actually a piece that stuck out, and there's actually an aftermarket piece you can buy, or some of them even come with the headers. It would bolt between these 2 bolts from the headers, and then it came up and it would bolt to this, and that would give you your rear support. And that's almost good enough, except those bolts and the headers are notorious for backing off. I'm not sure they make the locking ones long enough that you can add that piece of bracket in, because it's pretty thick. If I dug around, I probably even have one laying around somewhere, because I almost never put air conditioning back on stuff I put headers on. But that would actually be enough support to support the back. However, what you run into without that top one, that is also part of the belt adjustment. So you almost have to have that top one. So I could make a bracket, or modify this, or change the valve covers to a factory set of valve covers that would, you know, that would take this issue out. I could modify these valve covers if I had a way to TIG aluminum, which I personally do not. But I could actually cut a section out, literally turn it upside down, weld it back in with a little bit of filler, and I could actually make that to where that would work, which of course is a possibility, but I doubt I do that. I'm going to make this as difficult and hard on me as possible. There's no reason to do it right. Do it easy by changing the valve covers out, because that's just not how I roll. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. But this is why I didn't do this live, because this is what always happens when I try to do something. When you start using aftermarket parts, this is what you're going to run into. When these engineers that I usually cuss and don't care for do these things to make this fit with this, to fit with this, to fit with this, they get paid a lot of money to make this stuff happen. And the Chinese guys don't care. When you start buying aftermarket stuff, they don't care whether this is going to work for you or not. They just make a part and send it to you. And I'm not cussing the Chinese stuff, although most of it is crap. This is what you deal with, though, when you go this way. The smart way would have been to buy spend the $1,500 or $1,800, whatever it is, and actually buy a vintage Air or something for this car, and eliminate that big old box, ugly box there on the firewall. But this stuff all worked. It's just, I wanted to do something different. So anyway, guys, I'll keep at this, and I'll kind of show you what I do, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, I could actually just put a piece of strap in. I don't know. See, the thickness is what kills me. I don't have that much space in there, but I could take a strap. Here's a thought. Take a thick piece of metal strap and actually come from this side, because I think there's enough space, because there's enough gap underneath here. I can get my finger, no, there's not much light, guys, and I apologize for that, but there's enough space. I can get a nut and a bolt through there, even if I had to weld a nut on the back side or the front side of this bracket and run a bolt through or something, and come up here and then put spacers in this and still have my slide, but not have to modify. That kind of looks stupid. But it's doable too. I don't know, I'll kick around, and I'm sure I'll make it just as hard on me as I possibly can. So yeah, we'll see you here in a little bit.